Have you ever just looked up at the sky and wondered, was all of this, all of us, a complete and utter fluke? A 1 in a trillion shot in the dark? Or was life somehow predictable? Well, in this explainer, we're going to travel way, way back in time. We're going to see how the fundamental laws of physics could take simple, dead matter and spark it into life. And here's the twist. This isn't a story about random chance. It's a story about physical necessity.
So that's the big question, right? The one we're really digging into today. Was life on this little blue planet a total freak accident? A cosmic lottery ticket that just happened to pay out? Or was it actually an inevitable consequence of chemistry and physics just doing their thing on a brand new world? You see, the answer doesn't seem to be some single magical poof of creation. Instead, we're going to follow the clues, step by step. We're going to trace this logical chain of events, all of it driven by the wild environment of early Earth and, believe it or not, the weird rules of quantum mechanics. This is a story of how life had to happen.
So every good detective story starts with the scene of the crime. And for us, that's the young planet Earth. Now, if you went back, it would look like a complete hellscape. But it turns out that hell was the perfect, and I mean perfect, laboratory for life to get started.
First off, not all water is the same. It's really not. The water we find on icy moons, like Europa, probably came from comets that formed way out in the cold darkness of space. Our water, though, it was delivered by rocky asteroids, which made it super rich in all the right minerals. But the real game changer, the absolutely crucial difference, was that Earth was an open system. It had beaches and ponds and volcanoes. It wasn't just a giant static ball of water.
And that brings us to the real engine of creation, something called the wet-dry cycle. See, to build the long chains life is made of, things like RNA and proteins, you have to get rid of water. It's a process called polymerization. If you're in a constantly wet ocean, the water molecules actually break those chains apart faster than they can form. But here on Earth, you had ponds that would fill with rain and then evaporate in the hot sun. That drying process literally forced the building blocks to snap together again and again and again for millions of years.
I mean, it is so hard to even imagine how alien this place was. There's no oxygen, the sky is orange, the oceans are hot like a nasty bath, super acidic, and green from all the iron. And to top it all off, the moon was way, way closer back then. This caused absolutely monstrous tides. We're talking hundreds of meters high that were constantly sloshing everything around. It was like a planetary scale washing machine, mixing all those chemicals together on the rocky shores day in and day out.
Okay, so we've got the perfect lab set up, but how did the universe pick out the right ingredients from all of that chemical chaos? Well, the answer, amazingly, isn't found in biology. It's found in quantum physics.
For the longest time, the popular idea was the primordial soup. You know, the picture of all the little parts of life, a sugar here, a base there, just floating around and randomly bumping into each other, clicking together like Legos. The only problem? The chemistry just flat out doesn't work that way. In water, those pieces would never just assemble themselves. So, yeah, that theory was a bust.
The modern idea is so much more elegant. It's called systems chemistry. The idea is, instead of making all the Lego bricks separately and hoping they find each other, you start with really simple chemicals that were everywhere on early Earth. Then, through a series of reactions driven by things like sunlight, a single process builds all the components of a nucleotide, the basic letter of our genetic code, all at the same time. It's not about finding the parts, it's about the entire system forming together.
But why these specific molecules? Why the letters A, U, G, and C that make up our genetic code? Well, the young sun was blasting Earth with ferocious UV radiation. I mean, enough to tear most molecules to shreds. But the building blocks of our DNA and RNA have this incredible quantum trick up their sleeve. It's called a conical intersection. And it basically lets them take a direct hit from a UV photon and, in a fraction of a second, convert that dangerous energy into harmless heat. It's like a built-in molecular shield.
And this, right here, is the punchline. That brutal UV light from the sun acted as a giant filter. It wasn't survival of the fittest in a biological sense. It was survival of the most physically stable. Any molecule that couldn't handle the radiation got destroyed. And the ones that were left standing, they just so happened to be the letters of our genetic code. Physics chose them for us.
Okay, so physics handpicked our all-star team of molecular building blocks. But the next giant hurdle was linking them together into these long, elegant chains that could actually carry information. How did that happen?
The solution, it seems, came from rocks, literally. Certain types of clay have these perfectly layered structures, and these layers are just the right size to trap and line up those nucleotide building blocks in a neat little row. Then, the planet's wet-dry cycle does its thing, forcing them to link up into chains of RNA. Even the weird handedness of life's molecules was probably selected by another quantum effect, making sure only the stable right-handed versions survived. It was nothing short of a planetary assembly line.
So now we've got these long RNA chains, but how did they start to mean something? How do we get the genetic code, the actual language that translates a gene into a protein? Once again, the answer seems to be physics, not some random lottery.
The leading idea here is called the stereochemical hypothesis, and it's pretty brilliant. It suggests that the genetic code wasn't just invented or randomly assigned. It's based on a physical reality. Specific amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, have a natural chemical attraction to and literally fit into the physical shapes of certain RNA sequences. Think of it like a key fitting perfectly into a lock.
And this gives us a glimpse of what that very first primordial genetic code probably looked like. It was a simple pairing between the four most common amino acids hanging around on early Earth and the most heat-stable RNA words, or codons. These codons were full of the letters G and C, which make them really tough. So this wasn't some arbitrary language. No, it was just the path of least resistance. It was the pairing that was the most physically and chemically likely to happen.
So at this point, we've got these amazing molecules that can copy themselves and even start building little proteins. But it's all just loose chemistry floating around in a puddle. The next giant leap was to package it all up, to put a wall around it. This was the dawn of the first cell.
Now these first protocells were super simple. Their membranes were just made of basic fatty acids. And get this, the way they grew was driven by pure physics. A cell that happened to have some RNA inside it would draw in water through osmosis. This created pressure, and that pressure let it literally steal fatty acids from the membranes of empty cells nearby, causing it to grow. And their power source? Also a gift from geology. They used the natural pH difference at deep-sea hydrothermal vents as a kind of battery to power their metabolism.
And this is where a full-blown revolution happened. In the beginning, in the so-called RNA world, RNA had to do all the jobs. It was the blueprint and the factory worker. And frankly, it was slow and made a lot of mistakes. But then, simple proteins started to help out. But the real game changer, the moment everything accelerated, was the evolution of a specialized protein called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, or RDRP. This thing was a master copier for RNA. Suddenly, replication became fast and accurate. This was the moment life discovered the division of labor we still see today. RNA holds the information, and proteins do all the heavy lifting.
So let's wrap up our cosmic detective story. We followed the clues all the way from simple chemicals in a hot puddle to complex replicating cells. So what's the final verdict? What's the answer to our big question? Well, the evidence seems pretty overwhelming. Every single critical step on the path to life wasn't driven by some insane stroke of luck. It was driven by the physical and chemical realities of the planet. The cycles of water forced molecules to link together. The light from the sun filtered out everything but the most stable components. Rock and clay gave them a place to assemble and the energy to run. And information itself. Information wasn't invented. It emerged from the physical way molecules fit together.
And that leads us to a pretty mind-blowing conclusion. Life isn't some miracle. It's a phase transition. It's something that matter just does under the right conditions. Just like H2O molecules will inevitably organize themselves into ice when the temperature drops, it seems that simple matter will inevitably organize itself into life in the right environment. Life, it seems, is baked into the physics of the universe.
Which leaves us with one final incredible thought. If life is written into the laws of physics, if it's an inevitable outcome of planetary evolution, then it almost certainly didn't just happen once here on Earth. The real question then becomes, where else has it happened, and what does it look like?